Okay, picture this. You've got a former minister of police, a businessman with let's say, a questionable past, and they have a secret meeting in a fancy high-end hotel. This isn't a movie plot, it's the real-life setup for the sworn testimony of Bheki Cele, and trust me, it uncovers a tangled web of political plots, state security fears, and some seriously explosive allegations.
So, let's meet our two main characters. On one side, you have Bheki Cele, who used to be the nation's top cop. And on the other, you've got Kat Matlala, a businessman often described as being tangled up in some pretty murky dealings. These two guys are at the absolute heart of this story, and their connection is, well, it's complicated.
Which, of course, leads us to the million-dollar question that Cele's testimony tries to answer. Why on earth would a police minister be meeting with a character like Matlala to begin with? As it turns out, the answer to that is a whole story in itself.
Let's start right where it all kicked off, and I'll tell you, this wasn't some formal, by-the-book meeting in a government building. Nope, the setting itself kind of raises the first red flag.
According to Cele, the first time he ever laid eyes on Kat Matlala was in December of 2024 at the very luxurious Beverly Hills Hotel. But here's the first little twist. Cele says he didn't even know he was there to meet Matlala. Apparently, the whole thing was set up by someone else and was completely initiated by the businessman.
So what could possibly be so urgent? Well, the event that sparked this whole meeting was pretty dramatic. A full-on raid of Matlala's home by the police's most elite unit.
Okay, so the timeline here is absolutely crucial. On December 6th, the Special Task Force raids Matlala's house. Just a few days later, he's sitting face-to-face with the Minister of Police. And what he says is just wild. He claims another police general is forcing him to frame the head of crime intelligence. And his big ask for Cele, make it all just go away.
Right. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the story Matlala was spinning. He tells Cele that a certain General Sibia is twisting his arm, forcing him to lie in a sworn statement. The target of this lie? General Khumalo, the head of crime intelligence. And the lie itself? That Khumalo's people stole a Rolex and some jewelry when they raided his house. Matlala's theory was this was all just a big setup to mess up a new government tender he had.
But hold on, because this story wasn't just about some police infighting. Oh no, the conversation was about to swerve hard into what sounds like a full-blown political conspiracy.
And this is where the stakes just get ridiculously high. Cele testified that Matlala straight up confessed to meeting another minister, Senzom Chunu. The purpose of their meeting? Absolutely explosive. Matlala was supposedly going to use money from his new tender to secretly bankroll Mchunu's campaign to become president or deputy president. But of course, there was a catch. Matlala told Cele that Minister Mchunu gave him one very strict rule: don't come close to Cele and Zuma. And Matlala claimed that this warning is exactly what made him suspicious and pushed him to go find Cele himself because he thought he was being pulled into a very, very dangerous political game.
And the story just kept getting wilder from there. Matlala kept feeding Cele these bits of information, later claiming that Minister Mchunu was actually getting ready to have Cele arrested, and the evidence for this grand plan? An old dug-up newspaper article from way back in 2012. The whole theory presented to Cele was that this was a scheme to get him out of the picture, politically. So, I know what you're thinking, because it's the obvious question. Why would Cele keep taking meetings with a guy spinning these incredible tales? Well, in his testimony, he actually offered a defense for it. So here's Cele's argument in a nutshell. He basically says, look, in my line of work, you sometimes have to meet with criminals. The idea is that the information you get from them, no matter how sketchy the source, could be the key piece of intelligence that saves lives or stops something terrible from happening. Okay, but that raises a huge flashing red flag which was put directly to Cele. How can you possibly rely on anything said by a man who just told you he was ready and willing to lie under oath to frame a police general? I mean, it's a massive contradiction. Cele's defense here was pretty specific. He insisted he wasn't just blindly taking Matlala's word for it. He claimed Matlala was physically showing him things on his phone, text messages, articles, you name it. His point was, I'm not just hearing it from him, I am seeing it with my own two eyes. But Cele argued that all of this wasn't just about political drama. He claimed that his meetings with Matlala actually uncovered something much more frightening: a direct threat to the security of the entire country. And this is where the story pivots, and the numbers get really concerning. Cele testified that Matlala had managed to recruit 23 members of the Army's Special Forces to work as his personal security. Just think about that for a second. Some of the most highly trained soldiers in the nation working for one private citizen.
And at the very same time, the state was hemorrhaging its own top talent. Cele revealed that the police's own elite unit, the Special Task Force, had lost 56 members who just up and left to go work in the private taxi industry.
To really put that loss into perspective, it cost the state 1.1 million rand to fully train just one of these highly specialized officers. So when you lose 56 of them, you're talking about a massive drain on both skill and public money.
And this gets to the absolute core of what Cele claimed was his ultimate fear. He saw this dangerous trend. The state's own security forces were getting weaker, while these private, unaccountable security outfits were getting stronger. That, he argued, was the real national security threat he was trying to get to the bottom of.
So, after all of those bombshells, where does that leave us? Honestly, Cele's testimony gave some answers, but it feels like it left behind a trail of even bigger, more complicated questions.
I mean, just look at how often they were in touch. We know for a fact they met in person at least 4 times. But get this, phone records for a single day, May 9th, shows Cele himself tried to call Matlala nearly 10 times. That feels like more than just casually gathering intel. That feels urgent.
So let's just step back for a second and recap the extraordinary claims laid out here. You've got an alleged secret plot to fund a presidential campaign, a conspiracy to frame a top cop, a political scheme to get a former minister arrested, and on top of all that, a national security crisis where the state is losing its best officers to private companies. It's a lot.
Ultimately, this whole testimony just forces us to ask a really fundamental and pretty unsettling question. When public security and private interests collide like this, when the lines get this blurry, who really holds the power?